Hi, I'm John Waterhouse, and this is Weekday Wisdom. In fact, this is the last edition of Weekday Wisdom for 2020, and is being provided to you on New Year's Eve. What an opportunity to be looking at where we're going in the future and thinking about how all of this works. So my question to you today is, are you ready for a new year? I certainly am, and I pretty much think everybody is, that 2020 has done what it's done and it's time to move on. So let's take the wisdom of some great thinkers, great leaders who have thoughts on how to begin again, how to move from one idea to the next. And we're going to begin with Siddhartha Gautama, who's also known as the Buddha. He says, no matter how hard the past, you can always begin again. The president of High Point University in High Point, North Carolina, Nito Cobain, says your present circumstances don't determine where you can go. They merely determine where you start. North Carolina author Josiah Martin said the magic of new beginnings is truly the most powerful of them all. Canadian writer Robin Sharma says don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. Turkish playwright, novelist, and philosopher Mehmet Murat İldan says sometimes a year has been so disastrous and so terrible that entering a new year will automatically mean entering a wonderful year. I can have that. Licensed professional counselor from Colorado, Craig Lonsborough, says, packaged inside of every mistake, there lays a great lesson. And while I don't want to take the mistake into the new year, I most certainly want to take the lesson that it packaged into that new year. Mexican author Avina Celeste writes, enter this new year with gratitude for this new chance to create dreams. American writer, filmmaker, and philosopher Susan Sontag writes, kindness, kindness, kindness. I want to make a New Year's prayer, not a resolution. I'm praying for courage. British-born poet and pacifist Edith Lovejoy Pierce writes, we will open the book. Its pages are blank. We are going to put words on them ourselves. The book is called Opportunity, and its first chapter is New Year's Day. American journalist Ellen Goodman writes, we spend January 1st walking through our lives, room by room, drawing up a list of work to be done, cracks to be patched. Maybe this year, to balance the list, we ought to walk through the rooms of our lives, not looking for flaws, but for potential. Tony Robbins says, stay committed to your decisions, but stay flexible in your approach. Entrepreneur and motivational speaker Michael Altshuler says the bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. American-born British poet and essayist and playwright T.S. Eliot writes, for last year's words belong to last year's language. Next year's words await another voice. Comedian and talk show host Steve Harvey says you are never too old to reinvent yourself. William Shakespeare says it's not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves. American author Vern McClellan writes, what the new year brings to you will depend a great deal on what you bring to the new year. Plato, the beginning is the most important part of the work. Tomorrow is a beginning. American writer on business management practices, Tom Peters, writes, celebrate what you want to see more of. Transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson says, write it on your heart that every day is the best day of the year. Can't wait to tell Barbara that one. He also writes, the only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. Nelson Mandela writes, it always seems impossible until it's done. Thomas Jefferson writes, I like the dreams of the future. better than the history of the past. From Oprah Winfrey, cheers to a new year and another chance to get it right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. English writer Neil Gaiman, whatever it is you're scared of doing, do it. Make your mistakes next year and forever. British novelist, scholar, and broadcaster C.S. Lewis writes, you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. He also says there is far better things ahead than any we leave behind. Poet, novelist, and educator Maya Angelou writes, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And to our greatest president, Abraham Lincoln, always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. He also said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. American comedian Joan Rivers says, listen, I wish I could tell you it gets better, but it doesn't always get better. You get better. Dutch-German diarist Anne Frank wrote, what a wonderful thought it is that some of the best days of our lives haven't happened yet. American naturalist, poet, and philosopher Henry David Thoreau writes, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. American novelist, essayist, and screenwriter F. Scott Fitzgerald writes, strength shows not only the ability to persist, but the ability to start over. American First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, with the new day comes new strength and new thoughts. Use them well. Country singer and songwriter Brad Paisley says tomorrow is the first blank page of a 365-page book. Write a good one. American founding father Ben Franklin writes, be at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let every new year find you a better person. Author, poet, and lyricist Alex Moret, a new year, a new chapter, a new verse, or just the same old story. Ultimately, we write it, so it's our choice. British poet Alfred Lord Tennyson writes, hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, it will be happier. American mystic Helen Keller writes, resolve to keep happy, and your joy and you shall form an invincible host against all difficulties. And finally, British rock legend David Bowie. I don't know where I'm going from here, but I promise it won't be boring. I hope something here touched your heart, and I am knowing with you with absolute certainty that 2021 will be a much more joyous, loving, and happy, happy, happy time for you and for me. And to all of you, have a fantastic rest of your year, and I'll see you in the new year.